Hello and welcome. It was a time of change. It was a time of both simplification in a good way for some and simplification in a bad way for others. The introduction of 3rd edition Warhammer 40k was one of my bigger introductions to the setting itself. I had stuff from Rogue Trader and things beyond that, mostly within the Rogue Trader realm, most of which I've lost due to, one, moves, and two, movers not being exactly kind with your stuff in such moves, aka it got squashed and torn to pieces. Lovely. Or lost, there's that too. But 3rd edition was a interesting time of change. We moved away from what had been effectively a cauldron of ideas thrown together to see what meshed and what didn't, what crazy cool things we could put together, to a more firm foundation within what would mostly define Warhammer 40k as a setting up until about 7th edition. And like it or hate it, 7th edition did effectively alter a huge amount about this setting. It's no longer the 40k that this presented us. Now, back in my day, old man speak, let's go ahead and just give ourselves a little opening right here. Back in my day, I remember people being very, very upset about what happened here. A lot of the folks that I knew and effectively dealt with were older. They had invested heavily in Rogue Trader era, and they liked how it was presented. They liked the depth. They liked the kind of elements within it, and it's hard to be very upset with them. This is a giant departure from that. It changes a huge amount, and it does actually do a number of different things. Now, that not to go into if it's a good thing or a bad thing, as we get a good picture of this. It's more a matter of 40k moved from a satirical toy box spilled out across the floor to a more serious setting. Now, this is still during the time period where, as a company, GW wasn't producing every single thing under the sun. So they encouraged a lot of things like hobby your own stuff. And, well, here we go. Number of different made things. I remember this. How to make hills, and giving you some basic ideas how to do it. Now, they had some other books for crafting and all that came out, but I thought this was a fun little thing to show off. Let's go over here. We got some pre-made battlegrounds that they like to show off with some fantastic miniatures lined up for battle. But I've heard everything under the sun about how 40k was never meant to be a serious setting, about how it was never meant to be this or that. And the reality of the thing is that, like any idea, when it starts out with its steps, it's always going to have a little bit of unseriousness to it. It's always going to be a bit mixed and a little bit bizarre, and there's going to be changes. Effectively, this represents moving from the primordial concept to the realized idea. If you like that or not is not the important part. The important part is movement. I'm joking. Actually, the important part is 40k really did make a lot of alterations to what it was. And there are people who could speak more into this because they were more knowledgeable of Rogue Trader than I was, as I have spent many a year not dealing with Rogue Trader. I do have a fascination. Let's go ahead and go here. Show off the Imperium Indominatus. Hopefully it's coming across pretty well. Let me know if it's good quality or not, guys. It's not always easy to get these books in a good position. Here's one I think that's quite fun, actually. There's two parts to this one I want to show off real quick. the Worlds of the Imperium, and this is where we get the different classifications of worlds within the Imperium. Fantastic. Very role-play-ish, you might say. Now, let me see if I can actually get to the section I want. Here we go. Well, funny that you mentioned it. We have world generation tools that are D12s, or 2D6, sorry. You could use a D12, actually, for what kind of world it was, what it had in it. We'll show off 2 of these. Here's an ice world. And we'll do a quick little pan, a little fantastic art of some lemon russes. And we'll move on from there. We got a mission. This is a bunker assault. I do like that they had so much within these books. But 40K is an interesting beast. I've heard everything from it being a completely unserious thing that was completely satirical, to it being a joke on the people who actually play it, to everything else. And I can't help but disagree with people. 40K spent a long time as a fully realized setting. I hate to break it to people, but even Tolkien had to start out making his own world and figuring out how things were and how they weren't. Every creation goes through what we always call the ugly phase. That's not to insult Rogue Trader. That's just to say it's a not fully formed idea, and oftentimes when we get to where we want to be with something, we end up refining it, smoothing off the edges and the imperfections in a way. And campaigns and experience. I love this section, honestly. We got a little part about experience points for different guys, point cost, that whole thing. Battle honors. There we go. Fantastic. But for a lot of people, I remember a lot of the folks that were older than me at the time who were not taken with this. It was usually the younger crowd, even though there were some grognards who welcomed this as what they really wanted, because they were more into the war games as opposed to that mamby-pamby D&D style schlock. As one of the people actually said, he was an older gent. I can't do his voice any justice, but I do miss him. And we'll go here to some fantastic pictures of old orcs. Yes! Man, these guys have character. And some of them are quite skinny boys, I gotta say. Let's go over here. And do that. And then back up. Rogue Trader was an interesting time. 3rd edition set up a long period of time of realization of what the setting was. And 7th edition, with its introduction to Primaris, wiped most of that away. It went from a setting of stagnation and understanding of what was there to one of secret change by, people who could just hide entire gigantic legions and nobody notices. Like it or not, that's kind of what it did. And we got some Dark Elder images. I'm not going to bemoan or scream about it, but 40K has had a long time of being a setting that told you what it was, what it cared about, and what was and wasn't. And the biggest problem really is not that you girls or ooh this or that. The problem for many, especially the people who care, I think we often dehumanize people who get upset about these changes, is that when you care about something, you don't want things to be done to it that will hurt it. It's like a child. You don't want to see your child fall and get hurt. You don't want to see your parents fall and get hurt. You don't want to see things you care about, or like even a pet. You don't want to see your pet sick or hurt or unhappy. And a lot of people, this was their hobby. There are a lot of people who feel very strongly about this because it is their social. It is their outlet. It's their creativity. It's something that they can turn to in times of need and interest and all of that. And oftentimes I feel that we discount things. I remember when we made this transition, a lot of irritation with some and excitement with others. But I do remember there was plenty of fighting and arguing over it. But one of the things was we didn't dehumanize those people. And I'm not trying to use a particular language. If you like the newer 40K stuff, fantastic. I think that oftentimes we purposely misconstrue what people who don't like what we do as bad people. And I think that's irritating. And I especially find it that way. But I think there's a growing cohort of people who they want this. They want this non-changing rock. They want this firm thing that will always be there. And the problem with modern 40K is not women. It's not whatever color a human being is that's being attempted to be eaten by a giant space insect. It's not what policy or another you support or don't support. It's that Games Workshop has made the entire setting fluid. It's not stable. It's not founded on any firm basis. It's a ever-changing thing, and I think that's really the problem. On top of, well, they're constantly changing the rules, but I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing a drive up of prices like this book. This book, on my last check, has jumped up in some sellers to 120 something, 130, 135, and 60. That's ridiculous for a book this old. And I blame Games Workshop partly because, one, they have mismanaged their newer editions and their newer lore and the setting as a whole. Two, they have never given an outlet for people to legally obtain these older books through things like Drive-Thru-RPG or whatever. Sell it as ebooks or print on demand. Give people a legal and safe way to obtain these. But the thing is that Games Workshop wants you to forget this. And that really does bother me. It denies newer fans the ability to come back and experience these things. Hopefully I'm giving some basic thing. I don't hate you like Primaris. Just put that out there. And they're denying people the ability to rightfully know that they can preserve these things, and if they don't like newer stuff, to legally participate in the hobby in a way that's thing. I'm not saying that it's theft if you buy a used copy. What I'm saying is that at some point the supply is going to be outstripped by the demand, and I would like people to be able to access these things long after I'm dead, to be able to look at this relic and go, what? Who was this for? Who liked this? And maybe stumble on some of these videos. But guys, let me know what you feel. Would you like me to cover, as I kick the camera, some more sections within this particular section you, the viewer, want to see? Do you want me to talk about more of my own experiences with this? This is just me talking about things and how I feel about them. So I hope that is interesting to folks and that they have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.